and welcome to the August Social Services Committee meeting. Take us through. We've got a Sederunt apologies, please.
Afternoon, members. Thank you, Chairman. Just confirm 13 members present, with apologies from Councillor Carruthers, Councillor Yen, Councillor Stitt, Councillor Tate and Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. Do we have any declarations of interest? Councillor Nicholl.
Thank you, Chair. I have taken the governance advice on item 7 as I'm a registered foster carer with Quarriers, and I will leave the room at that point. I've also taken governance advice on item 8, and I won't leave the room for that item. I'll come back in for that.
Okay, thank you. Have you clarification on your eligibility, or you want to leave that till later?
I've had clarification on my eligibility, yes.
Okay, let's move forward. Item 3, we have a presentation by the couple of young people from the Listen to Us project. This project is actually about seeking the views and experience of looked after young people across the region in order to influence, shape, design and improve the range of services they access or receive. Supported by development worker, young people have a lead role in this piece of work, so I'd now like to pass you over to Greta Sherry and Stephen Rogerson. Few very active members of the group will tell us in their own words more about the project. Just before Greta and Stephen do, just for members' interest, that the Chief Executive and myself have actually co-signed the Council's commitment to this some time ago. When was that, Irene? About in May, yeah. So we're committed to it, and obviously welcome the young people here today, both Greta and Stephen. So it's over to you folks. Right.
Well, as you know, we're called Listen to Us, and I'm Greta and this is Stephen.
Hello.
And this is just a bit about us, what we do. Well, Listen to Us is about improving lives. As you can see from our jumpers, we have it kind of on our backs. It's a project for young people, and we're hoping to make a big difference to their lives. By gathering their views and experience. We plan on doing this through what you call survey monkeys and the postcards, which you should all have written in which are these.
Should be dotted about somewhere.
Dotted about somewhere.
Yeah.
You can explain about them.
Basically, we went to Youth Beats, and we'll be speaking more about that later, but basically what we were after was getting the views of looked after young people to see what was good, what was bad, and what were their comments about being looked after. And we'll go into that in more detail later on. Thanks. We are a group of young looked after people from Dumfries and Galloway, and we are determined to improve our lives and the lives of other looked after young people. And we believe this is very important to us and to the whole community in general. We are after the good and the bad. We don't want just the bad, we want the good as well, because there are good things about being looked after. And we want them to know that they are definitely, 100%, not alone. We would love to stamp out the stigma of being looked after as a bad thing, because not all young looked after people are bad. And we would love to know about their positive experiences and their opportunities that they had through being looked after. It's not working. Oh, there we go.
Well, since we've been involved, we've had lots of positive outcomes of it. We've been across and visited places around Scotland. We've been to Edinburgh, which we'll talk about later. And we've also been to Glasgow. It's given us a lot of team building skills, as you'll see from when we went to Edinburgh. we're hoping to get an academic and a non-academic training out of it, plus increase our self-confidence and self-esteem. To me, I wouldn't be standing up here speaking right now if it wasn't for having Irene and Stephen around. I'd be out that door as quick as in 2 seconds.
Oh, thanks, Greta.
And just sharing our own experiences of being in care. Like, I've been in care for 19 years now, and obviously I'll have loads of good ones and bad ones. And it's just, basically, I want to make sure that every young person knows that their voices will be heard, and bringing up any issues that we have. And I'm sure Stephen's along that same line as well.
Yeah, it's always good to know that there's other people out there who have been through it, and we've been through it, so we'll know probably better than anyone what it's like. And sometimes it can be really bad, and sometimes it can be really good. It just depends on who you meet and what experiences you have. So. Benefits for the services. There will be a great increase in knowledge of what works well within the social work department and what young people can get up to. Gaining respect of the service users. Well, this, I believe, is very important, because if people can listen to us who have been through this, we have great ideas of how we can make things better for the next generation. And that will, if you can make this changes, even just a tiny change for this year, then I believe within the next generation there will be massive changes. And we will have a lot more respect for your generation. And the next generations will make changes as well. Promoting positive images for young people. There are a lot of bad images out there for young people, which I think is very bad. Most people are seen that if you wear a hoodie, you're a gangster, or you're going to go up to someone and knife them for some reason.
Where for young people in care, it's like, you're bad.
You're just bad just for that. It's your fault.
It's your fault you're in care. They don't take, like, I know I've met up with a few people and they were like, it's your fault for being in care. It's not your parents, not the reason why you were moved in. It's your fault. You were put in care, you were bad.
So we would like to get a fantastic, good image of young people that actually do well in education and do get on to do other things. Benefits for the wider community.
More confident young people that are in care. Certainly there's a few out there that just don't want to be known for being in care because of the bad stigma and the reason why, really, that they think that they're troublemakers. And
have a very understanding culture out there, which is always good to have when there's lots of people looked after in the area. So far, we have been to the It's Time to Listen event. Greta was there, so she can talk to you about that.
This was up in Glasgow. It was a big conference. It had over 2,000 odd people there from your care services as well, plus young kids. There was loads of presentations, loads of things out of it, and basically it was to sign a petition to stamp out the stigma and to increase kind of awareness of what young people get. I'm pretty sure off the top of my head there's 200 odd people in care, and our outcomes are completely different to those that aren't. Where our education is a bad one, for example. We get moved from pillar to post, go on different things, and then we signed a pledge, which was spoke about. What was on the pledge? Can you do it? I can't. The pledge was basically There's one in there.
This one, yeah.
The It's Time to Listen event was a group of young people from across the whole of Scotland. All local authorities were represented, and Sean and Glennon came along with two of the young people to the event, and you had to sign a commitment to supporting looked after young people, and that's when we came back down from that day, and the young people arranged a meeting with the bosses, at which point the commitment was made to sign a pledge to set up a champions board for looked after young people in Dumfries and Galloway, and that means that we are now one of only 5 local authorities across the whole of Scotland who have set up that commitment. So that's what it's time.
Thank you, Ivy. Thank you. And the consultation postcards at Youth Beats, that was very good to have. We got, how many was it? It was 21 postcards we had filled in, and we got quite a lot of varied response. I'll just read out a few of the responses for you. What we felt was good about being in care was that they got to see different people from their families that they might not have seen whether they were not in care. They got to go to and have other experiences like playing football around the world, which would be another opportunity which they might not have had. What was bad about being looked after might have been that the foster parents might have treated them differently than the actual biological parent, the biological children, which can also be very affecting to the looked after young person. And
You had the ugly ones, was family ties, longer relationships, and can't make relationships as easy as others. That was mainly like family.
mainly people missed out on having a normal family.
There was other comments added in, like there needs to be someone, a campaign, or looked after young people in schools/colleges. There needs to be training for young people, or by young people for foster parents. And there was loads of other ones, like the stigma that foster kids get from people and how they get treated is differently at school and doesn't help.
We very recently just set up our own Facebook page, and we got 44 new people on the Facebook page within a night. And we've got 8 new people to join the group over about a week. So there is a lot of people out there that do want to make a change, who want to get involved, which I think is very positive. And if this project gets put up for another year, I believe there'll be lots more people willing to get involved and make a change. And I hope you will be, hopefully want to do the same as us. So, what next? Greta?
I plan on visiting Cree Studios in Newton Stewart to make up a video to send out to young people and promote our own selves.
We would like to reword the Dumfries and Galloway promise. Study visit to Dundee, so we can get to know what it was the Champions Board in Dundee. So they're leading the way, so we want to get up there and get to know what they're doing, and we can maybe have our own one in Dumfries and Galloway.
And bring what they do best down here. And we plan in December, the college having a big launch event, basically inviting everyone that we've met so far and yourselves along, just to promote us a bit more.
We would like to see you all there in December, all shining faces looking up at us, not scary at all. 150 people looking at you.
It's going to be fun as well. We plan on doing lots of different things.
There'll be a lot of Christmas dancing, Christmas trees and stuff. Santa will pay a visit too. Any questions? No.
There's a couple coming in here. Just before, I've got 3 people wanting in right away, 4 or 5 wanting in. I'm just going to say to you that, when after that last meeting, we discussed about how we would put together this board and how many things, and I think that needs to come from you, how you think that should take shape, because we already have the commitment from the council to listen and interact with you. So maybe ask you to take that back to your group and come back with a suggestion how you think that could best be met in Dumfries and Galloway. It'd be dead easy for us to sit here and say, let's have one for each district, but that'd be us telling you what to do. That's no the answer. The answer is asking, you tell us what you need, and we'll do our best to meet that need. And just quickly, Greta, with all due respect to Stephen, you weren't at the first meeting, but you've come on leaps and bounds since the last time I saw you. You were quite as a wee moose, all of a sudden you're right at the forefront here, so well done. Jock, you were wanting in first.
Thanks, Chair. That was an interesting talk, and I'd like you to clarify just what you said about education. But in looking at this card, are you intending to give this committee a view of the results you collect once you've got a number of cards back?
Yes,
So
we
that
are. We're in the process of still writing them up and still collecting, but we will be, yes. But also, I know I was speaking to a young person 2 days ago that wanted only the people in the group to really know about it. We are planning on meeting that young person and saying, if you progress your things, it will help us a lot more. But we are planning on sharing them with you and getting them out there.
I think you're addressing the right committee, and if you want help for us, you've got to give us the information as well. I know that the council made a commitment a few years ago about guaranteeing youngsters in care, guaranteeing them an interview for a job. But obviously that's part of our commitment, is to train you to work at it, know how to do an interview, if you like. So that's part of the remit too. And obviously there'll be more things that we need to do, and if we can get that information from you, so much the better. But can you just clarify what you said about education, please?
Well, I know my own self, my education, my results aren't great. It was mainly because I've been in care for 19 years now. I've been to 6 different foster homes across Dumfries and Galloway, and every time I needed to move school. So I lost loads of schoolings in between it. My high schooling wasn't great. I remember went into first year, then moved, went into second year at a different school, then moved again. It didn't help anyway because I've got dyslexia, so that wasn't really progressed until I got into 4th year. But even then I didn't get good grades, I just dropped out. As I can say, I went and run around with my friends and didn't bother with my exams. So.
There's not a massive amount of, as far as I'm aware, there's not a lot of looked after young people that go off to university. I've applied for university twice in the past couple of years, and I still haven't got there yet. I'm planning to do an open university course this year, and hopefully get to university in the future. But as far as I'm aware, maybe you may know better, but I don't know an awful lot that have gone to university.
Thanks, John, Simon, then Jane, and then Andrew, in that order, yeah.
Thanks, Chair. First of all, it's well done on your presentation and well done on the work that you've been doing. I was a foster carer for 15 years and I looked after the same age group as yourselves, so I appreciate a lot of understand the stigma. Just maybe some of my colleagues about the education. I know you're saying that you would be moving schools. The great difficulty in the past, and I don't think it's improved yet, you could maybe correct me, but when you're moving for a different local authority or a different agency, they'll know take you on till they know they're going to get paid for your education. I had a girl for 2 months that was at home because the local authority wouldn't take her on. They were arguing who was paying. That needs to stop right now. It's still happening because I still think it does happen. When you're sitting in new foster carers for 2 months, going off your head, and they're going off their head, it doesn't help, plus it's ruining your education, and none of this should be about money.
Yeah.
So I think I understand the point I'm making. I think one difficulty as well, your age group, is through care and after care. Where do you go now when you get out of care? I think it's too late before we start these through care programmes. They wait till you're about 2 months of flying in a flat or something and you've got to fend for yourself. That happens too often as well. And I know that's why they're worried you've got just coming in front of you. We need to do more work on that. You know what I'm saying?
I can say that has just happened to me. I've just turned 21 and I've not been shown the door, but I can't get any help. And there's me in a flat with my other half, but I've just recently got a job and let's just say I'm not receiving any of that money.
I do think through care should start at the age of 14. when you're looking to get into the system. Can I just ask on other supports, and you could maybe help us, but do we have a Who Cares Scotland worker recently in Dumfries?
Irene should be able to help you with that.
We've actually been working with Who Cares Scotland. It's actually Bernardo's who are the support for Dumfries and Galloway. The Who Cares Scotland worker doesn't work here on a permanent basis, but I work quite closely with Who Cares Scotland, and we're hoping to get some funding through the Life Changes Trust to set up a partnership working, because it's not just a social work service, it involves education and health and the whole community planning partnership. So we are working closely with Who Cares Scotland and Bernardo's and other agencies, and hopefully the Children and Young People's Bill will address the issue of the through care and aftercare, providing care up to the age of 25, not just 21. They are talking about looking at, not for everybody, but for those deemed in need. But we'll hopefully be applying for funding to help address the through care and aftercare starting early.
That's good, and with the Who Cares Scotland, one time there was only one worker in the whole of Scotland, and they were tied up in the Central Belt at the time, so that's good that you're getting a bit of support there. I also did a lot of work with the Fostering Network. I don't know if you've had any involvement with them, but I know that they do a lot of similar stuff, and they would give it, not that you need any support when I've just seen your presentation, but there is quite good support for the Foster Network. If you wanted to get involved with them, they could give you some ideas, plus give you information with people that are doing a similar thing in other authorities. But well done.
Right, thank you.
The sort of thread through this is definitely education. That's, I think, really what we feel is the way out. I just wanted to ask you, did you use, because about 10 years ago, there was a Who Cares Scotland questionnaire done on education in particular, and I think it might be very useful to see if you can get hold of that. See because all the young people were asked for their opinions, all looked after people in Dumfries and Galloway were asked about their opinions about their education, and I think it would be really useful to compare what was going on there with what's going on now. So it would be great to hear that. What was said then was that people didn't so much mind about people knowing that they were looked after. What they didn't want to be is treated any differently in school, and I'm assuming that is still the same. You would want that to be the case. You wouldn't want to be treated any differently by teachers. But the next thing you said, and I was a little bit concerned about it, was the issue about colleges, the college, because I thought there was a programme which actually did support people.
There is a programme, we both were involved in it, and right now there's no main support worker for that programme. They've both left.
Yeah.
We're both still in contact with her. She's took us on as her own roughly children anyway, but there's no one there apart from what you would call the Princess Trust. They kind of help, and there is another woman there, but we don't see her that often.
Sorry, could I just say I've got a meeting with June Holland next week to discuss this happening in the college, and she's extremely supportive because they want to set that support up again for looked at, and they're still very closely involved. So that will hopefully start up again.
Thank you. And if I could just say, that was a most engaging presentation, so thank you.
Oh, cheers.
Andrew?
Thank you, Chair. I would just also echo those sentiments. Well, you've done a fantastic job with your presentation, but this is probably the biggest step you've made, is entering into awareness, making elected members aware, making people in authority aware of what is happening. I take it you will have a business plan that will help us to understand even further the difficulties and the problems that you're coming up against, and main solutions, how we can help to take that further forward. One of the other areas I was going to discuss with you, and that was on that same thing, is Youth Parliament. Are you going to put someone forward for Youth Parliament so that you get a strong say, not just within this region, but within Scotland?
Yes.
Yes.
It was a strong yes. We want everyone to hear about it, and we want everyone's support, really. So
Yeah. Why?
Yeah, the expense of
patronising or trying to patronise you. I'm sure you know, and it has been an excellent presentation. And I think Andy the chair referred to it, that you're a wee miss when you've come out. But there are many other kids like you out there who are looked after and facing many difficulties. And we've heard the response from the members in terms of their questions. I would ask you, if there was a priority area that you would say that we wanted to see change within a year, and we'll come back in a year's time and see whether you've effectively changed that to the better, what would it be, and would you put down that challenge too? Because it's one thing bringing you out, you know, and displaying you here amongst the elected members. If it doesn't bring about change, what was the purpose? So is there a priority area, and you would say in a year's time we'll come back and we'll say to you whether you changed anything as a local authority?
For myself, I wouldn't prioritise anything. I wouldn't prioritise anything to make something we change more. My own personal thing, I would like to change foster parents, the way you get treated, the way you feel pushed out and changed.
If they treat their own children different towards you, you feel sort of isolated and sort of different. But some, not all foster parents are like that. Some can be really good and just engage with you.
Yeah, I'll just say I've had a couple of great foster parents and I wouldn't change them for the world, but I also have had the terrible ones where I basically would have said, like I had one of the young kids in with me and I got to say she was 6 years old and she turned around and said to me, why are we treated different? And I couldn't answer it.
I was at school, in primary school, and I just went into foster care. It was a couple of years. And I was on the playground and this boy turned around to me and said, you've got no parents. So naturally, being the boy that I was, I went for him. And of course, I got into trouble for it.
But nothing was said to that young person.
No understanding of what my life was like. So I would like, probably if a year, couple of years, for someone to be. Yeah, I'll mention that in a minute. I'll just go off on my wee tangent.
Okay.
Where was I?
I'll calm you down in a minute.
Okay, so I would like for someone to be in the school system who, like a champion for young people in care, who that young person can go to and be completely honest with that person and speak to them like a counsellor who's just there for that person who can speak.
And gets their views and helps change them.
Yeah.
Rather than getting their views, passing it on to someone else, and then a year, like 3 months later, coming back and going, oh, wait, what was that? I know myself, I want training by young people for foster carers.
Yeah.
That is something I want to change. I feel that foster carers don't really, I had one foster carer that turned around and said to me, she's only in it for the money. And that made me like, really? Cheers. She didn't care, she just wanted the money. And that's got to change.
But just to be clear, not everyone's in it for the money.
No, not everyone is.
Ian, Dick, and then Lily. Yeah, just to ask if you, do you have an opportunity where you have foster parents that you're not happy with? What kind of opportunities do you have to talk to anybody else about it, or even speak to the foster parents with some guidance, or what kind of opportunities do you get to say, I'm not happy here and things are going wrong?
I know I didn't.
You can speak to your social worker, but
Doesn't go anywhere.
it doesn't always work out well.
I know I had a problem with that one that turned around and said they're only in it for the money. I told my social worker and nothing happened. It went to her and then I said it again 3 months later and nothing happened. Until I misbehaved, and I will say I wrecked the house and I got into trouble and had the police at the door all the time before I was moved.
But
And it shouldn't get that far. It should not get to that stage where we're getting our own self in trouble to get out of somewhere we do not like.
I had a foster carer, I can't really say her name, but I was 19, and for a good few years now I was not allowed to key to my own home. And so I went back home one day and the door was locked, so I phoned her up and said, I'm outside, can you let me in? She was like, I'm busy at the moment, I won't be back till 10 o'clock at night. So, I was like, not having all of that, so I climbed up through the back window and onto the second window and through the bathroom window. And when she came in, I got into trouble for that, but I was a young man. And all I wanted was a key to my own home. That to me was not me being treated as part of that family, not having the key to my own home when I was 19.
I had that, and their own biological children had a key.
Yeah.
I had to wait for them to come back before I was even let in that house. Because they didn't trust me.
Yeah, her biological son, who was 4 months younger than me, he was allowed to go out to 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night, and I had to come back by 8. So that was a complete difference between us. Why? I don't know. But that's the way it is. When I spoke to a social worker about it, it was just, what have you done?
It was always your fault for misbehaving. It was never, wait a minute, look at the wider picture. Why are we misbehaving? Why are we wrecking the community just to get our voices heard? It shouldn't be like that.
But anyway, I'm a grown-up man now, so...
Yeah, I'm grown up. I've got a job and
She works at Tesco.
I'm changing things for the better, and we were improving other young people's life that are doing the same what we did 4 years ago.
So we would like for young people to have a better time than we did. So that's all we really want.
We've got Willie and then Dennis.
I wish to come back and thank the two young people for their candid answers to it. And I take the point that it's not necessarily about prioritising. There are many issues in there. Then what I found interesting was that you did not come back and say education, as it's too easy to latch onto and say, let's get education, because we can measure that. We can measure how you're doing, and we can measure how as looked after children, you are failing, or the system is failing in that respect. But what I did get was a clear message from you, and I would hope that it's minuted in a way that we do come back in a year's time to see if there have been any changes, because I noted it was about the quality of foster carers that you're concerned, and that came out loud and clear from the repertoire that followed, and the experience that you gave, and also someone that is there in the system to listen, where you sometimes don't always get it from social work or social worker that may be attached to you. So those are two areas. So perhaps it's a challenge, and I would like to think it is a challenge from you to say in a year's time, let's come back and see if there have been any changes to those two areas, rather than just have you coming and making a presentation and really nothing changes tomorrow. That's what I would like to see for the social work committee, to see that we are effective in how changes are brought about.
I would add to that, Willie, and actually say, I would add and tell us the blockages that stop the change happening. Because you'll come across situations that we can't imagine, right? And unless we know about them, we can do nothing about it. So bring that back to us. I've got Dennis coming in.
Yeah, I think we've also got to remember that as a council we're corporate parents, and there are only 14 councillors here today. Is there any way that, I presume this is being recorded, that this part of that could be made available to put some form to the other members? And I would be backing Willie and yourself, and that's when we come back, I would say it's to the full council, because this is an issue for all 47 members, and I would hope this presentation is also going to be made to the Education Committee, because I'm quite stunned by some of the bits and pieces. I think these issues exist with people in foster care to the extent they obviously seem to do, and I'm quite stunned by what I've heard, and thank you for coming and telling us.
Dennis, I agree entirely. Just a minute, John, I'll let you in. I was sitting here actually talking about taking this to full council, or suggesting that this committee recommend it goes to full council. Could we also ask Irene that the link, I never said to you beforehand, but you're going viral, because this gets recorded. So
Okay,
the voice recording, the voice recording is available to go onto your website and your Facebook page link. So if you can arrange for that, then that lets the whole world know your message you put across today, and I think we'll ensure that you get an opportunity to repeat it, either whether it's you two and another two, or even you two and plus another two, to come to the full council education, or we'll take advice on that, but I would suggest full council, because it's the council that's the corporate parent, not social work, not education, right? So it would members be agreed to that, that this or a similar presentation being taken forward to full council. Yeah? Yeah, okay. So you have another audience again. Fantastic. And that was it.
PowerPoint.
Yeah. Was there anything else that, John, you went in?
Some of the points, and I know what you're saying about foster carers. I think we're about 30,000 short in Scotland, so unfortunately we do have maybe some that not so stringent with some people going through the net as we are. There is a lot of things we can do. Again, with the foster network, we're looking at, in England, there's a cap of 3 children to a foster family. In Scotland, we don't have that. People can take in 7 foster kids and have their own kids. That's less than we've got in the unit for staff. It's not acceptable, and that's one thing we need to lobby for. And I hope that's maybe one thing that you're looking at doing for improvement. On education, the amount of kids that said to me, and the amount of times I have teachers coming to me, these teachers are only trained in looking after accommodated children.
No.
We've had wee lasses put in front of them and say, make a Mother's Day card without finding out her history. How bad's that? Things like that. They don't look at the history, they don't look at the behaviours, and they blame you. And just like what you were saying earlier, if ever a wing batter in the street or a window smash that came to my door, automatically, and that's exactly what you were saying. And that's a society thing as well. But I do feel quite bad. I brought that up about 10 years ago to education, about especially in rural schools, because for a while we were in the foster family in the area, and the teachers just, especially primary school, just didn't know how to treat. There was no confidentiality. There was no understanding of your position. And to me, we need to work on that as well. And a lot of these are things that you're working on for. I mean, you're looking to improve for future generations that will be taken into care. And if I hope this works out, because we tried this about 3 years ago to push the corporate parenting thing, and I think it kind of died a death a wee bit. And I know that our chief executive, his former authority, I think he had about 3 kids that he mentored. And I think that would be a good thing as well, because you mentioned that earlier on as well, that you would like counsellors involved.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to be going anymore, but thanks very much again for the presentation.
Thank you.
Personally, could be any help at any time.
Right, thank you.
Give me a shout.
Okay, thanks. We exhausted the questions, folks? Yep. Okay, again, I'm just going to reiterate, in May, I actually said I was humbled because the performance of the 4 youngsters in May was fantastic. Faced with directors, chief executives and the like. They stood their ground, they held their ground, they made their feelings clear. And again, you two have continued that tonight. And we respect Stephen. I've not met you before, it's the first time, I'm pleased to meet you, but having not seen Greta once before and seen the difference in Greta in a few short months, given the opportunity and the exposure, she's actually blossomed tonight and today, and that's all credit to you. And I'm saying that really sincerely. And so thank you for your presentation, and I look forward to it being done, version 2, the movie. At full council, it'll be, I don't know when we'll do it, it might be beneficial, Irene, to a wee bit later so that we can show some more progress. Would be good, I think, rather than just going with the same thing again, and expand on what you've done. And just quickly, lastly, I just say Irene, it's fantastic the work has gone on and well done, and you'll be assured you've got the support of this committee to continue what you're doing. Okay?
Thank you very much.
Okay, we agreed with that? Yep. Dennis?
I would hope also, Chair, that as a committee we will pick up on the points that have been made to see what we can actually do to make it better through the foster carers, and maybe more training can help so that these sort of experiences disappear.
I'll let Sean come in because there has been movement already, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's important that we know where we are, but it's also important to know where we came from. And I think there's been great strides with foster carers, with kinship carers, and with the whole looked after care agenda, especially over the last 10 years. The last 10 years ago, looked after children were seen as the priority of the social work department, which they were. Now we've moved to an agenda where looked after children are a priority for all of us. And when I say all of us, I mean health and education as well, because we've all got a role to play. On the graphic agenda, Daniel McKeever, one of our senior managers, is leading up a group on corporate parenting, and I hope you're linking closely, knowing he knows Greta from many years ago. I hope he links closely with this group, and we will move it forward there. I think for me, one of the things that hit me with the presentation today was we do a lot of training with foster parents, but maybe it's time that foster parents who are coming on board need to hear the experiences, need to hear the presentation that we heard today, because I think that would make a big difference. So there is a lot of work going on, and we are bringing a report to this committee, hopefully in October, around the whole looked after care agenda, but it's something I think that the elected members really need to be decided upon. So that's all I'd say.
Thanks, Sean. Derek, can you just summarise what action points we've agreed to, and so that they're formalised through the council process to assure the young people that we're not just listening to them, we're doing something about it?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes. Well, firstly, yes, we simply acknowledged and thanked the young people for their presentation. We've acknowledged the importance of the issues raised, and I think we've agreed to bring forward a presentation in due course to full council, given the corporate parenting role of all members. In essence, I think we've agreed to remit officers to work these key issues through that have been highlighted today by young people, particularly using the GIRFEC group as a means to do that, and to receive update position presentation to this committee in approximately 1 year's time, notwithstanding the information provided by Sean just a minute ago. Happy enough, Chair?
Yes, the GIRFEC reports back to social work, doesn't it? To education. Can we get GIRFEC updates reported back here on a regular basis?
As everybody knows, GIRFEC stands for Getting It Right for Every Child. So, as I'm saying, all committees need to be cited on how well we are going with the GIRFEC agenda.
Thank you. Okay. Thanks very much once again for your presentation and your time. Okay, you're welcome. Bye just now. I'm just buying my time for Sean. I think he's had a comfort stop. Not this Sean, the other Sean. Okay, we'll continue. Obviously, there's a usual reminder that it's been recorded and available for the public, so be aware. We go on to item 4, the minute of the meeting, the 15th of July for approval. Are we happy with that minute? Yeah, okay, agreed, thank you. We'll move on quickly to item 5. It's the budget report for the period in the 30th of June. Sean Barrett, I believe you're taking us through this. Is there anything you'd like to add to the report, Sean, or any comment you'd like to make?
Thank you, Chair. I'll just give a brief introduction. This paper provides an overview of the social work position for the period to the end of June. The paper highlights the initial forecast overspend position of 165,000. This overspend position only relates to greater than anticipated numbers of kinship care arrangements being presented and meeting the criteria, alongside pressures on the number of children with disabilities receiving care packages. These are partially offset by lower than expected numbers of residential and nursing care. The financial regulations state that a service may incur revenue expenditure in pursuit of policies agreed by a relevant committee of the Council only to the extent that budgetary provision has been made. Authority to exceed budgeted amounts must be granted by committee beforehand. Social work have identified that they will exceed the kinship care budget provision and therefore require committee approval to meet the kinship care arrangements which are currently going through the process, which are expected to cost in the region of £173,000. However, social work services should be tasked with identifying alternative options and solutions from elsewhere within the social work services budget to meet this overspend. Members may wish to consider this before reaching any decision. Improvements to financial and budget management arrangements are being progressed which have and will highlight emerging budget pressures and the need for social work to identify solutions to meet these pressures. These pressures are alluded to in sections 4 and section 5.5. Progress against these emerging pressures will be reported back to this committee at the earliest opportunity. Members will be aware of the need for identified savings to be made to balance the 13-14 budget, and progress against these is given in section 6. Members will also be aware of the need to change the approach in which social work services are delivered against a backdrop of changing national policies and reducing financial resources, and Appendix 2 sets out the series of reports that will be presented to this committee as the Council looks to address this challenge. I can also take this opportunity to point out an error in Appendix 1, page 15, which is a balanced budget against kinship care. This should show a 173k overspend position, which was subsequently amend the overall forecast overspend to 165k, which is in line with the narrative report. Happy to take any questions, and Heather Collington from Social Work can take some questions too. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Sean, I've got one question. I've got Ian Dick, then Graham, then Jock McKee, please.
Thanks, Chair. I don't know whether this is to yourself, Sean, or the Interim Director. Just in relation to that budget pressure, do you think you can actually deal with it within the existing social services budget?
It will be difficult There's no way of getting away from that. There's a number of emerging budget pressures, but it's an £83 million budget, and there must be scope in there to look at stuff. So and also bear in mind, this is, it's only the first 3 months monitoring, and the whole idea of improving the budget arrangements is to make members aware of the emerging pressures out there. So I wouldn't say that it won't be easy, but there are opportunities that the service will look at and come forward with solutions, I would hope.
Thanks, Sean. Graham?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I know that you're looking at care packages right across but are you is that covering children as well as adults? Is it the full scope, the full breadth of people that you're looking at these care packages on?
The review initially was adults, but it is very much looking at them all. The priority was first of all to tackle the high cost adult ones, but it is rolling out across all packages, and it is all packages.
Thanks, Sean. Joe?
Thanks, Chair. Obviously there's concerns about this when at the end of June we've already got 165,000 budget pressure unbudgeted, and that's got to raise concerns. And I noticed throughout the papers that you're doing quite a bit of work to try and get these things under control by working together with your staff at all levels, and I think that's very important. Obviously, children with disabilities and overspend in kinship care. In kinship care, to be honest with you, I think we got landed with this a number of years ago through the government identifying kinship care as an area they wanted to address. And I know that one of the colleagues here and I did a quick calculation on the average cost of foster care based on having 93 or 90 youngsters in kinship care, and our calculation for annual spend for that was about 1.2 million, and they gave us 212,000. And I think it's got to be brought to the attention of that government that they brought this in without looking at what it entailed, and that they've got to address these budget issues which are caused through them, not through us, not through their inefficiencies. And I think how they do it, I don't know. I notice there's a children and young persons bill coming out, and I don't know if you've any ideas what that might contain, whether it's likely to help us or not. If it helps us, it'll be a novelty, I think. But I think it's put pressure onto us that we could well have done without. And on high cost packages 6.1.2, page 12, have you achieved that 265,000 saving, and you've secured another 120,000? Is that what it's saying there? If that's what the case is, then obviously that saving will be used to the overall social care budget, I would anticipate. But if you could just clarify exactly what's meant by that on the high cost packages, please.
Okay, Sean, just go ahead. Didn't come through me all the time, just answer directly.
The 120k is towards the 265k. There is still some space to go to get that saving. There are packages identified with the scope to deliver the rest of that, and potentially further than that. So it's still something there's a lot of focus on.
Yeah, and I kind of missed the opportunity. I have to say, kinship care's been around a lot longer than the current government. It's been around for 10 years or more, but we'll leave it at that. Jane?
Thank you very much. I was going to ask about the issue about the variance on kinship care, but I thought that the remarks made were helpful. It's very early. Well, we're very early, and I think there is opportunity, and I think we should try and take it, Chairman, to attempt to get this thing under control before we run round saying we can't cope with it within our own budgets. I also just wanted to ask, please, I think the locality divisions are very interesting. I think there are some interesting comparisons to be made within them. I'd like to be able to use them more effectively and efficiently in terms of numbers. I thought it would be helpful to know, in some ways, what we're talking about in terms of numbers who are receiving packages and exactly how they all stack up and whether there are any differences across the localities. So I think that would be something which, in terms of analysis, I think we might find useful and helpful. And the other thing that I particularly noticed was in Allendale and Eskdale, there seems to be an under-recovery of income anticipated there. So I think that seems to stand out to me in terms of looking across the localities. Just wonder if I could have a little bit of guidance on that, please.
Thanks. Sean, can you take something? And then Sean's got to take one bit about part of the review, but if you go first, Sean, yeah.
I'll cover the non-residential charging income, which is where the shortfall is. The locality splits, you'll be aware, this is probably our first attempt at bringing this to committee, so that they are still very early and we are still trying to, through refreshing the data exercise, which is progressing well, to be able to give you the further information that you require. In particular in relation to the non-residential charging policy, I'd need to check this for definite, but there was a case where somebody was reassessed and they got in the region of £13,000-14,000 backdated payback from to last year, so that would impact why that maybe looks a bit higher than normal. We are seeing across the board though, sort of people's ability to pay seems to have dropped a bit since last year, and that will come forward as part of one of the reviews that we've got on charging policies, is how we look at that. It's an area which is particularly difficult to budget for and to forecast, because you're dealing with people's capital amounts and their overall ability to pay.
Sean, you want to come in? I should really say Sean McLean because it's getting recorded. And how do you differentiate between the two on the sound? Okay, Mr. McLean, yeah. The accent.
I'll talk slowly. Councillor, we are going to embark on reviewing all our kinship care placements to make sure that they are all fit for purpose. I think it's important though, as Interim Chief Social Work Officer, that I laid down a marker. There has been a growing feeling that kinship care is associated with a budget, and it shouldn't be. The kinship care is about what we heard from those young people today, is providing a good, secure family base for them so that they can go on and achieve in life. It's very much linked into our single outcome agreement. What do we do best for our young people? And we know that young people achieve better when they're within a family unit, within their natural parents or within their kinship care. So I would stress to folk in the room, please do not associate kinship care with a budget. It's a lot wider than that. But we're going to be looking at every placement to make sure that it's fit for purpose. The priority all the time will be to make sure that children are safe and protected.
Thanks, Sean. I've got 4 speakers waiting here. I've got Andrew first, John Martin second, Graham, and then Willie. Yep, in that order. Andrew first, John, Graham, and Willie. Yep.
Thank you, Chair. Well, a similar theme to Councillor Maitland, it's with regard to a more in-depth, more information within the actual report. I think it's a good stab at the report. It's not criticising the report, but I'd like to see more there. I'd also like to know what timelines you're putting in place. For example, if we were to look at the high-cost packages, I don't suppose you've gone through all of the high-cost packages. There will still be some to do. How many are to do? When do you anticipate doing them? And how, or when do you see yourself getting into a full 3-month rota of review?
We're taking that. Sean McLean, yep.
High cost reviewing packages is an ongoing process, Councillor. We initially started out by identifying, I think it was 50. As we got more into our system, we identified more. Now, it's probably a bit like painting the fourth road bridge. It'll never be finished. But as soon as we reach a point, we will now start looking at all our packages, and that will include children's packages as well. So we have a small team of folk who are actually actively working on that as well. So the timeline is ongoing. Like what we would do is we would provide at this committee regular updates about how many we have reviewed and how much money that has either, as Sean pointed out, costed us or saved us. So I think it's a regular reporting back, but it is continuous work. So.
I think just it has to be said as well, it's a bit like the adverts for savings on the television. You have to be aware that it may go up as well as come down. You know, it's like going on the stock exchange, because we just don't know from day to day what the need is, as opposed. But yeah, we've got that. John Martin.
Thanks, Chair. As I say, I think most of us understand that it's a what do you call it, thingamajigger based budget. Like, it depends how many actually we can never tell how many people are, how many clients or customers or what you want to call them are actually needing demand-led service, which it is, as I say. But it's disappointing. I find it really disappointing that we just agreed a budget in May, then we come back with an overspend. The overspend is actually nearly 300,000. We're just as lucky that the older people's budget, we got 128,000 back from that. Our overspend would have been 300,000, taking them figures. And just going on to the high cost packages, we've asked about these high cost packages for quite a while now. And as I say, we were told that it was more or less a tabletop exercise before they actually implemented these. We've implemented it to make £265,000 we're hoping to save. We've actually made a savings of 120,000, but it's been reported before at these committees. It was previously reported in 1.2 or one of the other ones that the high cost care package review had generated an annual savings of 172,000 for 13-14 and had identified a potential further 265,000, which would be delivered to balance the social work budget. Well, we're still well short, even the 172, we're short of that. So, as I say, we just got to understand, here, is these actually, the tabletop exercise, are we actually saving, are we actually going to make the savings of 265, and what are these savings actually is? Because we've asked before, and we were told we'd get some examples of where these savings were going to be coming from. You didn't really need to know what the clients were, that type of information, but we'd like to know, we asked and we were told we'd get examples of where these savings were being made in the high care cost packages, and that if no one came here and now we're in the general packages and nobody knows where these savings are coming from, and yet we've been promised we're going to get examples.
Right. Okay, fair question, and a question I'm going to ask here, officers, to build on that, is that how low can we drill down, or how far can we drill down here before we actually start to identify people in terms of information for committee? And it's not a case of hiding behind anything, it's a case of let's have some reality in the thing. Just a second, John, I'll let you back in. Are you wanting back in?
As I say, I think it was actually the Chief Executive was here when we asked for examples, and he told us we'd be able to get examples. We didn't ask them to dig deep. We were just wanting general examples of where these savings were being made in the high cost packages.
That seems a reasonable request, and across the service areas, we can get that back to you. Do we need that to come to committee, or are we quite happy to circulate that around the committee members by report? Yeah.
John, taking aboard your points there, and I think if we could do something similar at next committee to what we've done with those young people and brought in, rather than do it in the form of a committee report, but actually have a worker come in and do a presentation about what high cost packages look like. Right. Well, let's put it down then for the next committee, and we will deliver that at the next time. I think my colleague Sean will take the financial side of that question.
The 172k was actually as a result of the 12-13 recovery, and it was achieved in 12-13 and was part of the realigned budget. So we've basically accepted that, and it's in our budget. We've already achieved that. We're now just focused on the 265 target, which is required for the 13-14 budget, and 120k has been identified and secured towards that. We've got an exercise where we're trying to capture all packages which are being reviewed, and we're documenting them. So that information is there, and the general package review has also begun, and we've started to populate the templates for that.
Thanks. Okay, John, yeah. Graham?
Yeah, it's on the same thing. I'm confused a wee bit with this 265 and 120 in the high care packages. 265, is it still 265 after he found 120,000, or is it 145 having found 120, take it off the 265? Right, that's fine.
Well, I'll start for the mic, being one of the last speakers, and most people have made the point. But however, in item 6, I know John is totally correct. We've asked for examples to come forward, and they are not here again, where they can be. They could have been anonymised in terms of this is the package that is considered as a high cost package, and here's the type of savings, so we can see that people are not being put at risk in the reduction, and it's then it can be put over that it's not financially driven, but it's because that there is a new package that can be set, and that there is no risk to the service user. So I think in terms of what Sean's offering, in terms of coming forward, I would like to see it in the report that these cases are anonymised. There are not that many of them that we once got a report on as to the total. And I know there's a reluctance, and you've shared that with me, Chair, in terms of, but you can identify the individual. I think we've got to find the skill of anonymising the individual. We see what the packages are, and then we can see that they are not being put at risk, irrespective of the savings, where the savings becomes the target rather than the service delivery. Similar, Chair, in item 5, under adult service sector, I see that it's reflecting there forecasting a net savings of 46k, and it goes on to say about underspend mainly due to forecast spend within residential care for older people. My experience, at least in the West, is that there are waiting lists for people trying to get into residential care, and they cannot get into it. And what they offer is that for the bill under 5.3, not that I'm advocating personalisation, I hasten to add, but we see that how we can deliver a more personalised approach to care, which offers a great level of choice and control to people. Personalisation is okay if it's there and people can purchase what they're after. If it's not there and they're still having to wait, then there is a hiatus there, and we've got to address it. So while I recognise the 46,000, I'm not sure if it's a true reflection or the reality that exists out there in terms of people asking and requiring the service. So I'm not getting that from the report, and it's more against the savings. Can I move to a more contentious issue, Chair? And it is, there are two parts to this. One is children with disability care at home service overspend of 38k. The only thing I can see there is that increasing. And I think there is a hard job in here in terms when we set our budget to say this is the services that we require, whether we get it right against a needs-led budget. And the situation is I've experienced in the West, and I know Sean has been charged and commissioned to come forward with a report on residential care or respite care in the west of the region, and for a fact I know that there's 21 plus families not receiving, families with severe and profound disabled children who are not receiving respite care because they have to travel a round trip of some 150 miles and it doesn't always suit, bringing into Dumfries all the time, because there is no respite care for children with profound disability west of the region. And Sean referred to at the last meeting that he's been charged with bringing forward a report. I would hope that report is coming sooner rather than later in that respect.
I think that report will be here in half an hour, Councillor.
Half an hour?
Yes, it's on today's agenda.
Aye. Can I say, then can I move on to the next point is that the kinship care overspend of 173, and Jock's right. We calculated this in 2007 when we came forward, and the figures there were that the SNP government did introduce it, and it's all governments that have let down the kinship carers of all political persuasion, because in 2007 it brought forward, in the first year it would give 120, next year 240, and the third year 360, and that was regarded as having enough to pay kinship care allowances when it has grossly underestimated. In 2005, COSLA didn't recognise kinship carers as being an important issue, or at least to the extent that kinship carers would exist. And I think the figures in 4.4 have borne out what Jock and I came forward with, and that this is a major issue. And indeed, I said to you earlier in the day, Chair, that I don't think you would expect people to be carrying out a job and not being paid for it. And it's not a matter of payment, it's about meeting our responsibilities and allowances, and we've got to meet that off the further 39 potentials, the 309 increases. There are people out there who are not receiving an allowance, and we've got to make sure that they receive it forthwith, with it being backdated in that respect, because Sean is right. It's about getting it right for every child, and making sure it's about their security, their safety, and if it's kinship carers is the way that that's done, then that's assessed and things. So we've got to make those payments forthwith, with it being backdated, and I hope the committee would agree to that today as a matter of urgency, that it be paid. Chair, I don't think that this social work has near enough. I'm quite happy to see the process go on and take the advice from those better qualified in financial matters, but I still say that the budget is grossly underestimated in terms of assessed needs, and we will continually be returning to this unless someone actually rescues it, takes a grip on it, and that we go to the Policy and Resources, or indeed the Council as the corporate body, and say that it is grossly under-financed, and that this is driven by assessed needs, and those needs aren't going away. They are only increasing, and they're increasing even greater under the current UK government's bedroom tax, and will increase even further. That's what we've got to tackle here, and tackle with other committees that social work is grossly underfunded. Chair, I hope we do address these issues today in terms of kinship care, and that we come forward with a more a report that shows us under the high cost packages anonymised examples, so that we can see that the service is not being reduced, and other areas where we are lacking in provision of service.
Right, okay. Right, where do we start? I'm picking up the mood across the whole chamber. Let's be clear, we have an obligation, both moral and under policy, to fund kinship care in its form, the way it is just now. The budget pressures, my understanding here, because this is about the budget monitoring today, this is not about changing policy, this is about straightforward managing the money, that we currently have available. I'm actually going to suggest to us now is that we agree that we authorised social work to spend up to the level of identified budget pressure, that's 173k, on those kinship care arrangements already assessed and agreed. And also that this spend is managed within the existing resources, including identification of alternative options where these would be appropriate. It's the first monitoring report of this financial year, and I think we need to try, as Sean gave assurance earlier, as best he could, that out of an £85 million budget, we should be able to have at least have a look and see how we're going to fund this. But we also have an obligation to the people who've been waiting for some time, who've been assessed, and to get the money that they so rightly get. So I would like to get consensus on that, because I don't think we should be going to a vote. I think as a committee we should say yes, we need to pay the people who are currently waiting to get paid, and then move on to the rest of the stuff after that. So have we got any dissenters to that? No, Jim?
Chair, just a question before you make a decision like that. How then, because if you look at the report, page 37 and page 6, Sean illustrates that we're picking up 5 new cases a month. Is it a week? A month? It's a month, I think, a month. How do we know that the most necessary cases are the ones being brought for it if you're just going to pay the ones that have currently been assessed? Now, I understand what you're saying, but doesn't it deal with the real issue that we have a responsibility to discharge, and if there are people coming forward that maybe they're more needy, they maybe more in a financial difficult situation than some of the people are that we're currently assessing. I just have a worry about where we're going with this, and I realise there's a budget pressure we have to deal with, but I don't know that this is maybe the best approach, given that we're picking up new cases every single month.
Just two things, Sean. My understanding is what we have to deal with right now is a technical problem where the Acting Director, Chief Social Work Officer, can't overspend a detailed budget without agreement of members, right, to meet the needs. Am I right, Sean, in that? Yeah. So, we need to deal with that first. We have an obligation to these people and these vulnerable children, and we need to get that out of the way, and then we'll look at the rest after that. Now, I appreciate your point, which is well made. But we don't know, we're assuming, there's a lot of assumptions going on here. And again, we're only the first period into the monitoring process. And I would suggest this is also the first signs that the new, or the more stringent approach that we've had recently actually kicking in, as they're telling us now at this period in time that we've actually got this problem. If you take away the kinship care thing, we're actually talking a relatively small amount of money, which you would expect at this time of year. So, whilst I think you're right in terms of how do we deal with it in the future, Jim, we need to separate the two issues out, deal with the people who've been waiting for some time, right, get them paid, and then look at the rest as we take it forward. And again, we've got as good a confirmation as we can get from the head of the department and the finance officer for the department, that within that bigger budget they should be able to find something. And if we find at a later date we can't do that, we can't meet it in the budget we've been set this year, then we need to deal with that. But we have to at least try and meet the challenge within the current budget. Right? That's absolutely crucial. We need that, and that message needs to go out, is we are going to run this department in budget. If it goes over budget, it will be over budget because it's something beyond our control. Right? So we've got that forward, and that's why we'd like consensus, so we agreed on this, that we will actually pay the people, we'll come to due money, right, and then move on to the next part of the process. So can I get that? Before we go on, can we get that agreement to actually pay the backlog that's agreed? Yeah. If it's other than just that one thing, Joe, then we'll come back to the rest and we'll discuss it if you want, yeah.
Well, based on the assumption that we're going to make savings in other sectors, then this 165,000 pressure, that should be part of the aims of the seeking savings, and they'll go towards that. So I'm not quite clear just where you're saying that there's some will get and some won't get. Are you saying that?
I've never said some will get and some won't get.
No, you're saying something. You were saying something about the kinship carers that you've got in the books just now will get a payment. They've maybe not received any up to now, and they'll get payment, but you'll stop payments.
That is a misrepresentation of what I said.
That's I'm asking clarity.
I was actually very clear, and what I said is to agree that social work services can spend up to the level of the identified budget pressure on those kinship care arrangements already assessed and agreed. They're sitting waiting to be paid. Right? That's what I'm talking about here, nothing else. Yeah. Well,
it's on the same subject, except that you're joking there in that sense, but I think Jimmy's right, because if you look at 4.4 at the top of the page, under page 11, the 62, the service is seeing an approximate 5 new cases per month. That averages at 1.2 per week. averages out at 1.2 per week. So as we speak, there's a 1.2 coming forward. Now, if you could get 1.2 coming forward on a weekly basis. And what you said was, yeah, and you're right, I think you've got consensus on that we pay those that are outstanding that have a back payment perhaps to be made, and I hope that we meet that as well. But on a weekly basis, we have 1.2 average coming forward. So this week there's another one coming in, next week there's another one, and we've got to find a way, because equally they're entitled to the allowance, and it's been assessed that they are, then we should be finding a way of paying that. Now, if it can be achieved by other means of savings, as you are trying to put over, and looking at closely at how it's being paid, then that still will mean they are met, because they'll be met within the existing budget. But if you can't limit the budget, and the demand still comes forward, then we will then be in the same situation next month and the next month and the next month, where those people will be requiring a back payment. So we need to find another way, whether it's through that we give, notwithstanding that you need the approval of the committee to go above budget. We can do it today, where it's given, the Chief Social Work Office could be given the authority to say that these are recognised, and we go ahead and report, as long as the people are paid as and when they require it.
Okay, you points me.
Chair, Jim. It's just briefly, I thought we're now getting ourselves into a situation, this is not criticism before anybody gets excited about it, but where we were trying to assess or establish what the demand would be on our budget in any given year. So we should have been at the start adding 40 new cases on to the budget for this year, just on an average, and if it's, I don't know, £100 a week, that should be £40,000 we should need to be adding into that budget at the very start, or the estimating of what that pressure on that particular service would be in the whole year. We've obviously not got to that stage yet, but I think we need to, and I think we need to soon, so that we can try and predict, because it is, after all, a demand-led service, and I still think we need to stop at some stage and look at the £82 million budget, whatever it is, and say, you know, social work, can I take a hit on that, because it's just physically impossible to run a service with a reduced amount of money coming in when demand's increasing. That's just, and it's just a practical impossibility, and that needs to be put to some other members in other committees that are budget holders, to ensure that we don't deny the most deprived and disadvantaged folk in society the support that they should get. And it's not criticism, I think that's where we should be, and that's where we should be striving to.
Okay, just one comment I would make is actually, it's not demand-led, it's need-led. There's a subtle difference. Ian, you went in.
I was just to ask, I mean, if there's 5 going on a month, presumably we're monitoring the ones that the kids who fall out with the kinship care payments, because assuming some will go back to their own family, or perhaps they just simply grow up. I mean, obviously, I'm taking it that that's being monitored too.
Yes, Councillor, we have a looked after children system where children are reviewed on a regular basis, depending on what type of placement it is. That's either a 3-month or at least at most a 6-monthly review. But the priority for the social worker who's looking at that placement is to make sure that that child is safe. So the child is with the grandparent or the auntie, then the social worker sees that their job is done, that the child is safe. So we've got to start looking at our other areas. The kinship care, our kinship care policy has been in place for about 5 or 6 years, and not the difficulty, but when we started it, we were bringing in younger kids, you know, like pre-4s, who are now only like 9, 10 and 11. So a number of kids who are coming out the other end are coming out very slowly, whereas in 5 years' time, there'll be more kids coming out. But at the minute, like they're all sort of, and it might be helpful at a forthcoming committee, we could bring an age profile to that.
Okay, would that help? As I was still back to the same position here, we need to deal with the deficit, the backlog, and then the ongoing is an operational matter and be reported back to us and how they take that forward. That's the reality, really. And so I'm hoping to get consensus here. If I don't, we'll go to a vote. It's as simple as that. But I really think we need to send a clear message out to kinship carers that we're supporting them. Andrew?
Not sure if you are getting consensus, but I'm prepared to second your motion.
I don't see any dissent for this side of the table.
No, absolutely. We've been around the houses here a dozen times here. I'm actually going to move to the recommendations here. And no, we've been had it discussed. It's been round and round and round. I think we've actually given it plenty of airtime. Now, so at 2.1, we've noted the forecast budget pressure. We agreed that, yeah, we've done that. 2, we've noted the effective management of service demands to continue to achieve the ongoing savings. 2.3, I'm asking you to take that out and actually put in what I'm suggesting is that members are asked to agree that social work services can spend up to the level of the identified budget pressure of 173k on those kinship care arrangements already assessed and agreed, and also that this spend is managed within existing resources, including the identification of alternative options where those or these would be appropriate. Okay, now whatever those alternative options may be, that would be it. So are we agreement on that recommendation? Yeah. Cheers, thank you. Yeah. Right, okay, that's finished, it's been agreed. Next.
Yeah. I'm coming forward with an amendment to that. I don't think you're being helpful in the way you're pushing this through. Chair, I did ask during the debate where, to the ones that are coming on a weekly basis, on average of 1.2 per week, that we find a mechanism, not as an operational issue, but as a committee, a mechanism by which we deal with these so they don't become the same as the ones that have been outstanding of today. And that is done as a policy issue. And I would say that we do in 2.3. I have nothing at odds with what you've suggested in dealing with the outstanding ones, but I think we need to find a way of the ones who are coming on and who you may not be able to find under a cash limit budget. Can we get a means in the recommendation to say, yes, as they come on, we will look at that, whether it's delegated to yourself as chair and the interim chief social workers, but we find a way of dealing with these so that they don't have to wait any inordinate time for payment.
Yes, well, actually, the last sentence of what I said was including the identification of alternative options, right? Because it's the whole spend has to be managed within existing resources. The identification of alternative options, whatever they may be, where those would be appropriate. Right? Then that may be, and I'm not going to second guess what the options might be, because we don't let officers take that away and look at it and bring back recommendations to us. Because we're the best one in the world, it is absolutely pointless today, or in the very near future, looking at changing the policy in kinship care when we know kinship care is specifically mentioned in the impending bill, which is due to become act very early in the new year. Right? So it would be crazy, I would suggest, to actually even contemplate changing the policy as we have it just now, and then changing it again in 3-4 months' time. Right? And again, I think maybe ask for some understanding on that, and take this forward.
Chair, in that clarification and confirmation that kinship carers will be paid as it is appropriate.
Exactly. My recommendation was worded in a way that would allow officers to bring forward further recommendations or way forward depending on what they find and what the future brings us. Yes, because we're the best one in the world. We can't assume we're going to get 5 a month. It might be 2, it might be 10. Absolutely. So we just don't know. Okay, Sean?
Just one point which might aid the discussion. It's 39 potentially meeting the approval criteria. Not all of them are waiting for money at the moment. Some will go to the next panel. So there's an element of growth built in there for these people coming forward. And also the challenge back to social work is to those falling off the other side, to manage that.
Okay, so that's agreed. We've got 2.4, we note the range of improvement measures in business and financial management arrangements are currently being progressed and further improve service and budgetary control and to reduce the risk of future overspending. And I think we've had that reassurance. Are we comfortable with that? Yep. And 2.5, review the agreed series of policy impact reports outlined in Appendix 2 to be brought forward to this committee in the financial year, including timelines. Yeah. Why?
I just don't know if we could build on to 2.5, and I've raised this on numerous occasions with you, and I thought at the last Social Work Committee then it was going to happen, or at least it would have happened over the recess, and that was to the lobbying activity, the cross-party working group, etc. And I think that we need to build on to 2.5. Notwithstanding the point that I think you're going to make, Chair, in that was under the previous administration, I think that if the political will's here, then it should be reinstated or reintroduced on a cross-party basis, and that we do have a lobby. I've referred to COSLA in 2005 to the 2007 when we have lobbied, and I think that we've got to be continually putting to government that this is an increasing need within Dumfries and Galloway, and I'm sure throughout the whole of Scotland, and that the government should be addressing it and not leaving it to the settlement and that we find it within the settlement.
Yes, what I have to say to you is that the Children's Bill, or whatever you want to call it, is currently at stage 1 at Scottish Parliament. Oral evidence sessions are being debated in September, and then we're on to stage 2 before the end of the year, which means stage 3, i.e. the formalisation of the bill, will be, I would suggest, very early in New Year, with an implementation date for that. So there is actually, or there have already been representations from Dumfries and Galloway, some from the carers groups, some from pressure groups already. In fact, I had actually a request from one of the pressure groups if I could lobby the Scottish Government to ensure that their voice was heard at the table. That was done, and that has been taken up. So that is ongoing. Whether we need at this moment in time a subcommittee to look at that is another matter, but we're in the middle of a process where the Chief Executive is looking at the structure of social work to meet the needs of integration, and we therefore have the situation about how we deal with children, and we clearly can't have children left out of the whole process, because after all, it's the formal environment. There clearly needs to be some list. So there is some scope and some leeway there for that to be dealt with in that process. But I take your point. You're right. And how we then view and how we deal with children's services and social work and education and GIRFEC and everything else is an issue that's been already raised with the Chief Executive, and he's taken that forward in his big overview of how we look at social work. So I hope that keeps us reasonably satisfied just now that I've not forgotten about it, Willie. And I did say to you, yes, we would do it. But it didn't seem much point at where we're in a formal consultation process with the bill going through. And because once that's formalised, then we'll have a clearer understanding exactly what they mean. And I would suggest then, if it's not what we think it should be then, that's when we resurrect what you're talking about. And again, I'm in your hands, folks, whether you agree with that or not.
Chair, I think there's enough in what you said for a working group, and then a cross-party, and then it can determine what it needs to do, and it can be guided by what you've alluded to. I would like to see that the social work do look at this as a cross-party working group, that we do prepare ourselves for anything that might be required along the lines that you've suggested, and that we take that forward from this committee, that we look at the cross-party working group. I'm happy to move, Chair.
Sorry, I was waiting for a second.
No, Senator, we'll move on. Thank you.
Chair, can you note my dissent on that one then?
Absolutely, Willie, your dissent is noted, and well made and noted. Yep. So 2.5, we have agreed. Yep. Thanks very much. We'll move on to item 6. Derek, maybe, actually, before we do, can you summarise what we did or didn't do there?
Essence of the decision, the recommendations are as per the papers. The main change was in effect into recommendation 2.3, where in the first instance the responsibility sits with this committee to manage the projected budget overspend, and therefore officers will take forward the options relating to that overspend and bring them back.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, item 6, the way forward. The Advisory Committee progress made in implementing the actions in the way forward programme of improvement. Heather, I think you're taking us through this, are you? Is there anything you'd like to add at this time?
It was just to say that you received the first progress report on the way forward in June, so this is our second progress report, and the key things are about noting the process of scrutiny that we undergo, which was set up as part of the original arrangement around this piece of work, so that we've got that continual oversight around the progress we're making. The other key thing to note is the really direct read across to the report that you've just looked at, and indeed probably part of the discussion you've just had, which relates directly into some of these actions. So they're not separate in any way from the ongoing work around, particularly around the financial recovery. And we've also already mentioned the work around the data refresh and making sure that our data is cleansed in order to support that planning. So that's all part and parcel of that. I've given you some summary of the progress in the report itself, and then given you sort of some of that fleshed out more in the actual appendix. We're still doing some work, hopefully for the next report that you get, in terms of trying to make sure that we give you sufficient detail in the report without overloading you with so much detail that it's really difficult then to see. So we'll hopefully sort of improve upon the format again for the next report that comes through. So I'm happy to take any questions.
John Martin first, Ian, and then Graham, I think.
Ian, thanks, Chair. It's just a point of clarity on the ordinary residents. Does this policy, as it is now, does that mean that another council can place somebody in Dumfries and Galloway and we're responsible for that person, considering what's going on? And we're going to be, the guidance has been issued now that we're trying to stop that if possible.
This is a really complicated one. In essence, previously, if another council placed someone in our authority, then that council's funding would have come with that person because they were the placing authority. The guidance that shifted in terms of ordinary residents meant that that was no longer the case. So previously we had to demonstrate that somebody had, in order for us to pay for them, that somebody had actually changed their residence, had intended to move here rather than being placed here. And the ruling that we had went against Scotland in that sense, so that yes, we are having to pick things up. We can't stop people, in a sense, coming in to live here. What we need to be alert to are what are the implications of that for us if someone is coming in with particular care needs, and making sure that we're in having that discussion around what they might be and therefore what might be the impact on our budget.
Thanks, Heather. It was a Supreme Court ruling, wasn't it? It was a legal decision that was to happen. Yeah, so, but the reciprocal doesn't work, am I right? It doesn't work, we can't recover the other way around. No, there's no agreement or accord when it goes the opposite way across the border, when we've had someone down there. Yeah. Oh well, we're better together, aren't we?
I'm lost, Chair. Can you just clarify this? I'm lost now. If someone moves from, let's say, East Ayrshire to here, voluntarily we pick up all the bills, I can understand that. If someone moves from here to East Ayrshire, I presume there is a reciprocal arrangement in as much the same problem they suddenly encounter. So in that respect it's different. And you're talking about being different if they go to Carlisle or Carlisle comes here, is that what you're saying?
Absolutely.
No, the difference is about placing authorities. Previously, if we were the placing authority, i.e. that we made a decision that someone would be placed, say, somewhere in England or elsewhere in Scotland, and it was part of our decision making that that person went to live there. So if you, the easiest example is probably somebody with a learning disability whom we may have resettled, for example, and who perhaps had, for whatever reason, moved to another part of the country, or we had moved them because there was a specialist residential unit or something that we needed to place them in, then we would have picked up the cost of that person going there. And at the minute, the ruling has meant that actually the argument will be that if that person is here for long enough, then actually they become ordinarily resident in Dumfries, if somebody coming in. So if it was somebody that we had moved out and they were now ordinarily resident, say, in Dundee, then Dundee would be picking up the costs. And therefore, if it was the other way around and someone had been moved down to, say, live in one of our units, then we now would have to pick up that cost. And it's the same across. So it's not about, if people move in and out, then if they bring care needs with them, we have to meet them. The change has been about where we've previously been the placing authority, where we've negotiated that someone goes and lives somewhere, and the cost of that has been ours to start with, and we've had to follow that through.
So these private residential places that we've got, that a lot will bring about a dozen kids for Dunfermline and Glasgow and whatever. Does that mean now that when their care finishes with that residential unit or with that private company, that we're responsible for through care and housing and things like that? Because it can originally be like that to me, a wee bit of danger, I think, because we're talking about a lot of people.
The ruling is essentially about adults. So in essence, if we have young people who are here who've been placed in terms of looked after children, then the local authority would continue to be involved in that and support them. But if they then chose beyond their looked after status to stay with us, then yes, if there were ongoing continuing needs, we would be picking them up. But that would be beyond their looked after status, which is not necessarily the same thing as just straight into adulthood at either 16 or 18.
Yeah, I think we're okay. Can I just ask a sort of hypothetical question? And so, if we had somebody in a care home down here, been looked after from the age of 9, 10 or something, right up through, the authority who placed them here have a responsibility for that looked after child up to the age of 21. Yes. Right. So then just to follow on from that hypothetical case, when they come out or they leave the care home at age 21, do we have the same responsibilities as, I'm hating to use this example, but it's almost exactly like somebody coming out of Chesterfield. So, where somebody coming out of through care, where we've got an obligation to house as well. Is it the same things that apply, either Sean or Heather?
I think if all local authorities have placed young people down within our region, and that young person comes at a time when they're ready to leave school or leave care, then it is the responsibility of that place in local authority to make sure that their needs are met. If we're going to do that, we would have to accept a formal transfer of the case, and part of that negotiations would be around financial implications. Heather's made the point about the ordinary residence orders being about adults, and John, you made the point about when these young people do become adults, but the adults we're talking about are elderly adults who have got particular needs, like and may need nursing home care or residential care. So we're talking about the older adults as opposed to the younger adults. But we've always had a responsibility for any young person in any care setting within our area. But we've got to negotiate with the key local authority, the place in local authority. That's the key.
I wouldn't want to waste the whole day in this, but I would presume if these people came with needs and reached an age of 21 or whatever, and they expressed a personal wish to live in Dumfries and Galloway, that would exonerate any other authority from responsibility, and we would have to deal with it, and that's just a reasonable request from an adult.
I suppose it takes us back to where we started today's committee with the presentation by the young people and how the attitude of the communities to children who are leaving care. Now, we're almost working on the basis that a young person 21 who's leaving care will not make a positive contribution to the community that they live in, but in fact that they will. So we've got to move away from, are these going to impose our services, or can they add something to our communities? And I'll sort of leave that hanging a wee bit.
I think And for fear of identifying individuals, I think to date the majority have been people with lifelong conditions, mainly learning disability, who have been in one or two localities, one or two locations for some considerable number of years. And I think that's where the budget pressure, am I right, Heather?
Yeah, if I could just come back in, again, you need to remember that when people move into adult care, then we've got a set of eligibility. So the eligibility framework, which is about what the level of need they have. So in a sense, you need to pass that in order to receive support from us. So you'd need to be, you can stay as a young person, you may choose to stay, but you may not need to have any care services provided from us. You may get support of some sort from the service, but you may not have paid support. It is more where it's people who've got, say, a disability of some sort or a lifelong condition, and that can be an adult of any age, right through, really, who then, if they need to have that care provided, we would then have to pick up that tab, whereas previously we didn't have to if they had been placed by another authority.
Can I just ask about 4.1.3, the invoice processing? Would it be correct to say that this is not just an exercise in reducing the backlog of invoices, but examining and changing the processes by which we got in this mess in the first place? And the second thing is on 4.21, presumably this is the exercise of engaging with staff in order to try and identify better ways of working and ways of saving money through better working and so on. And could you maybe just describe a little bit about what's different between the process of consulting staff now than it was a year ago? And could you tell us if there's any tangible figure that direct contact with staff and their suggestions is making to the efficiencies of the department?
Okay, the invoice processing one, you're absolutely right. It isn't just about dealing with the backlog. There's a huge piece of work going on at the minute about how do we streamline those processes, how do we make sure that those processes in the future work much more efficiently. And that's making sort of really good progress at the minute. We haven't completed it yet, but it's certainly well underway. And I know certainly the officer who's leading that is pleased enough with the progress that we are making, because that's essential. We have to get this one sorted in order for some of the other sort of system issues to work for us. In relation to the staff engagement, we've had in place since November a fairly regular staff engagement. We initially went out in terms of some of the issues around the way forward itself, around what was in the work plan. We also then went out to talk to staff about, we went out to talk to budget holders and key managers around some of the financial recovery in particular, to look at how we can engage them in helping us think that one through. We've since had further engagement with them when we've been doing some work around the systems. We've brought together some workshops which have been staffed right across the service in order to look at what the information needs of the service are, and in terms of any changes we're wanting to make to the system, making sure that they're involved in that. So again, that's ongoing. And at the minute, we're engaged in a process around some proposals around a restructure that we want to take out to staff. And we've sent out a survey for staff to complete. We're now in the process of analysing that, and certainly the first look at it suggests that there's some really important and really rich information in there. People have chosen to put, we left free boxes that people could put comments in, rather than just sort of take the box and you add it up. So when we've had an initial look, there's some really valuable stuff in that we want to pull out, and we want to make sure then that we get that back to staff. We're going out next week. We have 4 staff engagement sessions planned to present the proposed structure to staff and to follow up with them on that first cut of the analysis around the staff survey. So the sort of things that people were telling us were important to them in terms of any future sustainable structure. To make sure that then any proposals coming forward actually reflect some of those issues. And we're looking certainly to pool some sort of summary analysis of that into the October report that will come, which will outline for you the structural proposals really that we will include in it, that sort of summary for you of the involvement of staff, plus the summary of the analysis of what they've actually said in their contributions.
Thanks, Ed. Okay, following you. Just very quickly, are you able to quantify at this stage if there's been anything that's come from staff suggestions that you could say, well, we've saved 10,000 in that department because we didn't need several pieces of equipment, for example. Are you able to sort of provide that kind of more, not detailed information, but you can start to quantify it?
Part of the exercise we did when we met with staff before Christmas around financial recovery, one of those sessions was specifically about savings and about how staff could contribute to that. So it was really about saying to our staff, look, we need to look at how we can be more efficient and more effective. What are the areas that you think we could target? And we've got a whole list of those, really. Now, some of them are fairly small, that you could do fairly quickly, and which have been done. Or most of the other ones were some of the big ones. Some of them are the things that you see coming through the Way Forward report. So some of the stuff around, say, the high cost packages and the review of care packages, that's all been supported fully by staff in those discussions, saying we need to look at those sort of things. We're certainly looking at stuff around travel. You know, staff have come up with issues about could we be more efficient around travel, the use of some of our buildings, in terms just of looking at whether or not we can be more agile in how we work. Staff have come up with some suggestions as well about, well, could we go to reduced hours? Could we, would that assist in that? So certainly information out at the minute offering staff the opportunity to look at voluntary redundancy and retirement includes that option around looking at, well, if you wanted to look at reducing your hours on a permanent basis, that itself would contribute to the savings within the service. So there's been, again, quite a lot of discussion around that, and everything that we've had come through that, we've got a process in place at the minute of we're going through and examining all of those things, because some of the issues that were raised, we think that looks like a good idea, but let's make sure that it actually doesn't impact on something else. So we've had someone going through those sort of things to pick up and say, right, is there another piece of work we need to do there to realise that saving, really?
Thank you. I've got Ryan Angel. Chair, mine is perhaps the converse to what the position that has just been stated to be taken on, and that was focused on 4.2.1. I'm focused on 4.5.1 under the heading Intelligence for Planning and Resource Allocation, and it says in here, a review of commission is underway and the outcome of this will be reported to SUSWAT committee on 24th October. This will consider the planning resources allocation requirements, taking account of the other work underway within work plan. I made reference to it in the other report, Chair, in terms of that I think that social work may be underestimated. And in that respect, the previous remark was more to let's get it within budget, fiscal terms, and work towards that. Can I have clarification? Am I correct in my interpretation of this one is that it may come back and we require more in the way forward. And we could be guided by the intelligence work in that the assessments have been all wrong. Not all wrong, but may reflect something different. And indeed we require more from the settlement than what social work currently has. If I'm to read into 4.5.1 the way that I am.
Sean Munson first, and then Heather.
Councillor, I would agree with you. I think I've already said that as we were doing the high cost review packages, that may cost us money. And I think Sean did identify a case where we did. So it all goes back to what I'll keep on saying. It's about meeting the needs of the most vulnerable. And could I point out a typing error in this report, that this report for the 24th of October is actually December's report. So if you look back to the previous appendix in the previous report, we did say this report's coming in December, not October. So just for clarification. Right.
Okay, Joe. Thanks, Chair. I think it's well known that if you want to make savings, the people to ask are the people that does the job. And it's good to see that you're actually involving them now and you're getting a good response. That's to be welcomed. The other thing is, in my patch, and your patch state, Chair, there's a new house being built, and that was looking towards making savings as well. Where are we with that?
Sean?
think with several discussions with yourself, we are still waiting for a health and safety certificate coming back. We're in negotiations with the unions around rotas. So I'd hopefully hope that we had put a date in the council day for an official opening, which has probably been put back to November of this year. So that's where we're at with that one.
Can I just add something, Jock? I've already raised with the proper officer about why the process for Summit wasn't started earlier, in terms of getting a report back from him as to why some of the issues hadn't been dealt with earlier. Okay?
Can I raise a question about whether we've been managing the project properly or not with the builders and what have you?
That's the nub of what I've raised with the proper officer. Okay, is that us? Yeah, can we move on to the recommendations then? Oh, sorry, Jane?
Now, I did ask, actually, earlier on. Just very briefly, early intervention and prevention, which is, I think, really pretty critical, and I think it was one of the core tenets of what we were going to be doing, but it's quite thin. I don't think we've got any sort of dates and targets, and I think a key achievement being a joint discussion with health, I think is not really maybe adequate to be able to agree something at this point. I noticed we've got the subcommittee minutes, and I think that's helpful. And in fact, actually, I counted up, I think half the committee has been involved, Chairman, on the the Health and Social Care Partnership Board in one way or another. But, you know, this is pretty important, and I'd like to know how this is to dovetail in with what's going on in this way forward, please.
Yes, there's a number of different strands to this one, which is why it's probably quite difficult to summarise down what we're doing. From a social work point of view, the first report that's noted for coming back in October is one whereby what we're going to try and demonstrate to you are the links between sort of the shift to a more of an early intervention preventionist approach and the impact on that. So I would hope that within that you can see some more of that detail from our point of view, and that will then have to be there. And how does that then link out in terms of integration, and what impact will there have? And the report on integration itself will flesh that out further, hopefully, in terms of how those systems will work. In terms of what we've noted here, I mean, those are the discussions that are ongoing, and therefore I don't at the minute have the detail of the outcome of those discussions to include, and obviously when we get that, we'll get that in for you. But the bigger picture in terms of how we're shifting in terms of our practice will come through that October report. It pulls a lot of threads together. It's going to be quite a substantial report, really, and may well be the first in a series of reports on that issue, because it will actually take us a while to get all of those links put together.
Wouldn't mind just coming back very briefly. Will that, do you think, link in properly with all the bits that didn't work last time round, like the single shared assessment, all the work that was done, all these bits? I mean, this is, I'm really anxious that we don't miss this opportunity, because there was a tremendous waste of time, resources, money, everything last time round.
Yeah, so the answer is yes, Councillor.
Yes, and just to build on that, I think that I know that there's the first of the update reports coming to the next partnership board, which is about 2 weeks away, Jane, as you know. And we do know that the work streams have already started, and work has been going. I know finance colleagues have been doing that for some time, but and the lessons obviously learned from the pilot project, putting you first, and the pilot areas in Annandale, Nesdale, and Patsy Dumfries will be valuable lessons and learned. And all the signs at this moment in time are that the hub is working very well, and just exactly the problems you were talking about from last time around, like the old joint futures and stuff like that, is hopefully confined to the history bin. Yeah. So are we okay with that then, is there? Yeah, okay, so we've reviewed the progress and we've considered the focused action plans. Have we any further recommendations? No? Just happy to let staff continue the way they are and receive regular updates? Okay, thank you. Thanks very much, Heather. Okay, we'll move on to item 7. Short breaks for children with disabilities through Dumfries and Galloway. Is to provide members with a summary of the short break services available for children with complex disabilities and their families. Report highlights to members the increasing number of children with disabilities who have complex needs and the challenges this places when planning and delivering services now and in the future. We have the report author Sheila Clingan with us. Sheila, is there anything you'd like to add, or are you happy to go to questions or any updates?
I'm happy to take questions. There's nothing to add.
Okay, Willie.
Yeah, Chair, I referred to the inequality, the inequity in the west of the region for people with respite care, and it was Sean came back quickly and said we'll be discussing it in half an hour's time. And I thought, well, I was waiting on another report coming in the door. I didn't know it had to do with the short break report and everything else, because this does not address the issue that I've raised with the Chief Executive, and indeed that I was looking for. And in reading this, I have a number of points, and that's my first point, because this is not about providing the 21 plus families in Wigtonshire with short-term or short break facilities. It's about, the issue for me is about providing facilities in west of the region where parents do not need to take their children 150 mile and more round trip, because short breaks, and I've had experience with many of the families in the west of the region where even the short break opportunities do not provide with a through the year respite that they're entitled to, and many just do without. I think the report bears this out in 3.3.1, where it says consideration is therefore required around which agencies are able to deliver high quality service and how these can provide throughout Dumfries and Galloway equitably. And again, it recognises 3.3.2 in autism and the increasing demand with parents for respite. And my experience and understanding of short breaks and the Short Break Bureau, this does not meet the requirement in terms of respite that these parents require in the delivery, and reference is made in the report to those that are on direct payment against personalisation. And I know there's a move, and even there are difficulties, and I've met with some of your colleagues in the west of the region, and when asked, if I haven't been taking respite, is that banked up to allow me to purchase short breaks, and I'm still waiting on that. At least the parents are still waiting on a satisfactory answer without personalising it into an individual basis, Chair, before you jump. I think that in that respect, then short break is not the same as providing respite facilities west of the region where there isn't, and that's why I was looking for this other report. So I'm a bit disappointed in that, because this is not what I thought I was going to get, and I thought indeed that Sean was going to initiate some discussion with the parents in the west of the region. That may have taken place, I don't know, but I'm sure Sean will come back and advise if that is the case. So in that respect, Chair, short break opportunity is not the same as respite and being available in west of the region and the 21 families. Maybe I could get a response to that I'm not getting respite currently as we speak.
Well, nobody can disagree with what you've just said, but I'm struggling to find a question. Can you maybe just...
It's this report done what I asked for of the Chief Executive that I thought was coming forward. Okay. And short-term breaks is not the same as providing facilities for respite west of the region.
Okay, Sheila, can you take that?
Yeah. Can I just say that within children's services we refer to overnights. equally as a short break. So a short break for a child with a disability could be anything from 2 hours to 120 overnights, as I've stipulated in the report. The respite with regards to children with disabilities is the experience for the carer. So if a youngster is having an overnight, then clearly the respite experience would be that break from caring as a parent. What I can say is that within the report I have, it's really a summary of the short break services at the moment, because there's clearly a variety of short break experiences that parents receive or that children can experience from that 2 hours to 120 overnights. You are correct, there is only one residential short breaks facility, which is in Dumfries, which is the NHS and Council joint provision, partnership provision. We do have, however, a short break service, a family placement short break service throughout the whole of Dumfries and Galloway, and there are a number of families within Newton, Stewart and Stranraer that do access that short break family support, family-based service for children with complex disabilities in the west of the region. We have discussed with a number of families that their reasoning for not wishing to use our Acorn House residential service. Now, it's fully understandable that for some families with very, very complex needs, that they wouldn't wish to do the 150-mile round trip for that service. However, there are some challenges to the actual provision. There's never been a residential short break service in the west of the region. And there's two reasons for that. One, because of the complexity of the youngsters. It requires a very sophisticated and staffing to an exceptionally high trained level in order to deliver the service. And we haven't financially been in a position to provide that. We are in negotiations with a couple of adult care providers to explore whether there is opportunities to use some of their facilities as a dual purpose short breaks provision in the west of the region. But I would have to say that that's at an early days discussions with those providers, and some of those discussions will go on and will take place for the remainder of this year.
Thanks. I'll just leave a minute while you come back on that. Just for some clarity here, Sheila, can you explain the relationship between the NHS and the local authority? I know that it's a shared provision here. Whether we buy it in or it's their premises, I'm not quite clear. So is that role and responsibility a joint responsibility between the NHS and us, or is it purely a local authority one?
It's actually a local authority responsibility, but the NHS Dumfries and Galloway are quite unique in Scotland in that they are entered into a partnership with Dumfries and Galloway Council for the provision of the only joint short break service. So they fully accept their responsibilities with regards to the provision of short break care for children with disabilities. It's also a jointly funded service. So it's not just pure and simply funded by the local authority, it's a jointly funded service.
Okay, so just building that, then are we looking at the potential similar partnership down in the west, for example, or elsewhere in the region? Because we have the same situation up in Nistile.
We have discussed with the NHS colleagues about how we could provide a service in the west of the authority. The numbers wouldn't justify a fully operational 24/7, 7 days a week service in the west of the authority with regards to the number of overnights and the children requiring those overnights, because ultimately the decision for residential overnights is a parental decision, and not all parents want their child to be in a residential establishment, just as not all parents want their children to be with another family. But we are entering into negotiations as to how we could deliver, or what we could deliver differently in the west. And in the east, for that matter, as long as another area.
I was thinking up the Esdale Valley, for example, is just as big a problem. Well, back in the Index,
Yeah, I'm grateful for the clarification that I sought, and I think if it remains in terms of the reluctance of parents to use Acorn House on the 150 mile and more, in certain instances, if that remains, then parents will not get or will not receive the respite that's required. I'm also familiar with what was explained here in terms of adult and indeed was involved in the case, and Heather, I'll well remember it, where Quarriers was for children, and then it was difficult to get that transition for them to accept. So I am familiar and aware of some of the complexities there. My understanding to the point you're making, Chair, is that the parents, the families in the West, have identified a property and taken in the initiative and gone and looked at that in Stranraer. And indeed, it ended up that they had three options. There's a parent group that I have met with, one that did involve the NHS in a doctor saying that they could provide some kind of facility at the Galloway in Stranraer, and indeed the other property is one that is within our control, and there's a for sale sign outside it in London Road. So, you know, we have got the identified facilities, and if it means that we can, the parents would not see it in this report in terms of providing respite by way of facilities where their children with complex needs could go on a regular basis. They are aware of, or some are aware of the short breaks, as has been described. Some require more than others. So I would want to see, and I'm disappointed that it hasn't addressed the issue that I spoke to the Chief Executive, so I may have to go back and speak to the Chief Executive on it. But I would want to see, you know, how do we provide that a facility west of the region so that, you know, 21 plus parents can get some respite from the facilities that would be available close to hand in the west, and it may be the same for the east, Chair. I'll merely make that point.
Okay, thanks, Willie. I think a lot of what you're saying there actually falls into what we talked about earlier, and you know, identifying the real need across the whole gambit of social services or social work in Dumfries and Galloway. And whilst it's important that it needs to be included, I would suggest in the review that is currently taking place in the restructuring to meet the needs of integration, because again, the health and welfare of the carers, right, are adults, right, who might actually have the knock-on effect of not getting the proper respite, and everything else has a different knock-on effect elsewhere. So your point's well made, and I think maybe if we can take from here that it is actually, we can include that as part, that will be part of the bigger review and the bigger picture within social work. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and because we can't make it disappear overnight, Willie. It's going to take time, and we need to work on it. Yeah.
I'm happy, Chair, if that is, but we get an early report, and it just isn't lost in a review that's constantly under review, and there's no outcome from it. So I'm quite happy to you know, and we get a further report, but we get a further report because I will pursue it, whether it's through the Chief Social Worker or the Chief Executive, you know, because there is a disparity in terms of service provision throughout the region. And it's acute in the west of the region, where I can quote 21 plus parents without not receiving respite.
Yeah, the only comment I'd make is the current facility is an NHS one, it's not ours, and we work with them, so it's their building. But take the point, and we'll include it in the thing. Yes, Sean, you want it, and then I've got Ian, Dick, and then I've got Jane.
Sorry, I think it's just important that we don't associate respite care with a building, because we do have organisations who do go in and do take young people out, do stay in-house overnight. I think Sheila made the point that most parents would, I think, prefer that as opposed to their children going somewhere overnight or two overnights. But I think it's important that we keep that on the table as well.
Absolutely. Ian, Dick, and then Jane.
Thanks. I noticed in 3.3.4 this partnership initiative with NHS Social Work and School Services for the residential school for autistic and Asperger's cases. Could you just give me a bit more information on that, where it is and what sort of capacity? I think the key thing here is, as well, or one of the important things, is that this is a partnership with NHS, and can I suggest maybe or ask whether this is pertinent, falls under the remit of the Community Health and Social Care Partnership Board, given health integration?
Can I just say that the NHS are involved in the partnership. However, it is primarily being led by social work and school services at this present time. The identification and the need for a residential school for children with autism has been identified due to the number of children within Dumfries and Galloway who are currently placed at a specialist statistics school in Stirlingshire. So that contributes to the agency placement budget. So whilst we've been reviewing the agency placement budget and looking at the costs of that particular service, we've also been looking at the fact that those children travel to and from school on a Friday and a Monday to come home. They come home at their holidays. And we've identified that we could make some savings from children going out of authority by coming and being educated within the local authority. So, and that's been a growing need over the last few years, which has now finally merged into the actual proposals to actually take forward the building of a residential school. We have capital monies for that, and we are sitting with school services looking at schools' future and how to take forward that build. We're only at the point of looking at identifying a project manager at this point. Whilst we're talking about a buildings-based school and a residential school, we're also looking at 3 learning centres across the authority to which would provide day education for children with autism. The school itself we would be looking to house probably centrally, and at the moment we have identified that would be a 6-bedded residential school. However, we're currently reviewing the numbers in view of the number of children coming forward or being diagnosed with autism, which is increasing significantly.
Thanks, Sheila. Just for information's sake as well, I was still delivering early bird training in conjunction with the NHS, for parents who have just had their children diagnosed, had the diagnosis or an assessment of Asperger's or autism.
Yes, there is training going forward following diagnosis, and what we are finding is that in actual fact there are a number of services that are actually identifying or are raising children's issues on the autistic spectrum prior to diagnosis, so we're actually picking them up much earlier in order to create some early intervention and prevention services for the future.
Yeah, I mean, stealing your thunder is basically it's to help the families understand the condition and how to cope with it and everything else, yeah.
Yes, because there are long-term and profound needs for these children with autism.
It's Jane and then Willie.
Thank you very much. I was just going to say that I thought this was very interesting. It's just clear how difficult it is to make equitable solutions across a huge area such as ours. I recognise that distance makes it particularly difficult for some people to take things up. That's the case with a rural position. You've explained that there are options, and frankly, I'm grateful for the information. I think we should agree the report for your recommendations.
I think so. Well, you went in and then I think
it's a subject, Jeff, if that's okay. Yeah, it's a subject that was just raised there, and Sheila's response to the increase in number with autism and diagnosed, and I don't know if the committee is aware, but I had the occasion to meet with the consultant, the psychologist at the NHS and the PA, and the information I received on that day was following representation made. The waiting list to be diagnosed is anything between 18 and 24 months. I hear Sheila saying, and that's been assured that education pick up early and don't wait on the diagnose procedure being carried out. But nevertheless, that's, parents, that they are, my understanding is they are refused some of the services because they haven't been properly diagnosed. Education provide the service, but not all other external agencies do without the diagnostic review or whatever it is that goes with that. So I think as a social worker, for me, I would be concerned, I hope social worker, that it's taken so long. There is a growing waiting list of 18 to 24 months, and NHS are trying to get that down to 6 months. So any help we can give by way of social work, if that department's involved in the multi-agency approach, I think we've got to be providing that so that we can get that waiting time down to a workable time of 6 months, as is the target from Dr. Eccleston that I met with. I would hope we can do that, and Sheila could give some advice on that one as to the time 18 to 24 months.
Okay, thanks, Willie. We're moving towards the recommendations, right? But your comments are noted, obviously, we can move it forward from there. Okay, recommendation 2.1. We've had a description of range of short breaks, that's okay. The inclusion service user group within the considerations, that's self-directed support, that's okay. And we're noting the increasing demand in these services for children with disabilities and their families, and the routes that the actual the officers are saying that we're taking forward to address this.
Chair, can I just add, notwithstanding Jane's intervention in terms of equity and everything else being in a rural area, that I would ask that 2.3 there be an added part to it, being that equity of services in the west of the region will feature in the overall review, and a report will come forward to the Social Work Committee in early course. So it's there for a minute trail, Chair.
Well, we respect, we do then do the same for the Esdale Valley, for Upper Nisdale.
Quite a bit to take out in the west of the region and just say the services in the region.
In the region, okay. Just add in the region, yes. You got that, Derek? Yeah.
Happy to incorporate that, Chairman.
Thank you very much. So I think that's it. Sheila, thank you very much. Yeah, bring it back to members, yeah.
No, I know who you were.
Oh, Sean. Okay, we'll move on. Opposed to 31st Street panel, item 8. Sean, is there anything you'd like to add to this, or is there any background you'd like to just highlight for us?
No, Chair, I think the report is very self-explanatory. We need 2 members to sit on our fostering panel. The fostering panel, I will not sort of dress it up. It's a very difficult task. and there's a lot of work and a lot of input. But I see one member already agreeing to come forward. So I would say, that's all I'd say.
Thanks. Just just quickly, I'm interested in your views on this, because this shouldn't just, I would suggest, be the responsibility of social work. I would have thought something for education should have been in this fostering panel, because they have a huge part to play in this. So, if we can find one here today, then we can take it back to full council and actually see if someone from education or through education take advice from the centre on that. It may be, I'm not sure what the regulations say, Sean. Does it have to be somebody from social work committee or what?
I want to get clarity on whether or not it needs to be from social work, but I think the Chair's made a very valid point. Obviously, what we've talked about in here today about the corporate parent, the role of education, the role of health, and I would say somebody from education committee could come on to it, yes.
I actually think it would be a huge benefit to that panel, having another pair. Dennis?
Yeah, can I just understand what large workload means? Sean said it was a fairly hefty workload. In what way does he mean that?
Roberta might want to come in here and support what I say, because she has been this person in the past. The fostering panel will probably meet on a monthly basis, depending on how many assessments that are done by the social workers. Now, once those assessments are done, and they're quite complex pieces of work, so you may have 5 couples coming forward to be approved. So the member would have to read through all of those reports, be confident that these people are the right people that we want to be looking after our most vulnerable children. So the report reading itself, councillor, takes a long time, and then you've actually sitting in on the panel itself, which could be up to a day at a time, a minimum half day at a time. Roberta, would you...
No, yes, it does. It is quite onerous, because you have to participate in the panel as well as all the preparatory work. But it's very interesting, and it's a real learning experience for you.
Sorry, Chair, it's just the time scale. I mean, that's just too much time to have to give up.
Have you anyone else? Well, there's no option, but we need to take it back to full council, I would suggest. Jane?
Yeah, I mean, if it's a full day, is it a full day? What day is it? And does it clash with anything that, I mean, does it clash, what day is it normally on?
It would vary. Like Jackie Dean, who would do the sort of the administration around the panel, would make sure that it fitted in with your work commitments and diary commitments.
Well, I will be willing to do it for a year then. If I do it for a year, I undertake to do it for a year, but you'll be back again. Or I might have to do it for 3 years or something, don't I?
No, that's very wise. I agreed to do it for a year and ended up doing it for 5 years.
No, I would certainly, I will do it then for a year, but I make it perfectly clear that if it's actually impossible, I will have to come back, but I will undertake to do that. I can read quite fast.
Just one comment, Sean, is there a big training commitment?
There is a training commitment, but I wouldn't say it was big, and it's not onerous. But I think it would be very important that you did it, because it gives you really insight into the needs, just not to look after children who go through panel, but look after children in general.
Okay, so Jane, are you comfortable taking that on at least for the year?
I will do it for a year. I say here and now, if it's on a Tuesday evening, I'm not doing it. So I'm sorry, I can't do it. It's the end of the story. So if with that, then I will go ahead. Okay.
Is that rugby training on Tuesday night? Thank you for that. And we again will ask social work to provide the other member. Yep. Well, education, sorry. Yeah, okay. You would just...
Yeah, just to clarify, Chair, what we'll do in the first instance, firstly agree we've appointed Councillor Maitland to the vacancy. There remains a vacancy for a member to act as a substitute. In the first instance, we'll just clarify what the current position is on the various bits of paper relative to the outside body. There may be particular considerations for a member out with this committee. If you allow officers to do that, we'll then bring the report to the appropriate committee, whether that's full council or a service committee.
Thanks, Derek. Can we move on to item 9? And thank you, Jane. Yeah. Item 9, Association of Directors of Social Work Conference, 24th-25th October. Community Justice, a Community Response. This is to inform members of the Criminal Justice Conference where the agenda is in the papers, and to agree one member attending the conference. Sean, is there anything you'd like to add to this?
No, Chair, I think the report's very self-explanatory.
Okay, what's the precedent? Is it normally the...
It's normally the Chair of Social Work Committee or the elected member who is involved with the Criminal Justice Partnership.
Right, okay. So that's kind of me. Jane?
Agree the Chair.
Agreed.
Thanks very much. It's cut in half, by the way, because we'll be leaving directly after the social work meeting, which is on the 24th, isn't it? Yeah. So it's 1 week, not 2, right? Yeah. So that's agreed, and we can move that forward. Item 9, the minutes of social work subcommittee. 10, sorry. 10. Pay attention, right? 10, it was the minutes of the subcommittee. You agreed?
Noted.
11 is again the subcommittee meetings again.
Noted.
Agreed. We move on to the next item, which is the we've now the AOCB had going forward, so we move on to item which will be 13, I think, isn't it? Local Government Scotland Act. Consider adoption of resolution to exclude the public. That'll be hard.